Hey there, career seekers. Welcome to Find Your Passion Career. I'm here to help you find a career you like, and dare I say, possibly even love. I'm your host, Amanda Nachman. I'm the founder and CEO of College Magazine. After working with thousands of college students, I've noticed that when it comes to career, there's a lot to demystify. Let's get started.
Let's go.
Hi, everyone. What do you do when you face rejection at work? Do you mentally check out, complain to your inner circle, then move on, or take it in stride? Imagine if rejection didn't ruin our workplace experience or harm our motivation. Today, we're joined by Kristin Scott, a management professor and director of the Executive Leadership PhD program at Clemson University. Her research focuses on workplace dynamics, including employee motivation and workplace exclusion. She uncovers what makes offices functional and dysfunctional to then provide evidence-based strategies that can help you thrive at work. Kristin understands the ins and outs of the workplace. So if you've been having challenges at work, this one's for you. Kristin, welcome to Find Your Passion Career.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. Well, okay, what first sparked your interest in researching workplace dynamics?
Well, that's a great question. So prior to academia, I was actually in the field of HR in corporate America and spent just about a decade there. And when I left and joined academia in my doctoral program, of course, they said, you need to pick a research topic. What are you interested in? And after contemplating it, and largely due to those experiences, I kept going back to, why do people behave dysfunctionally in the workplace?
It's like they bring the dysfunction to the workplace.
Right. There, we say this is a professional setting, so behave accordingly. And yet there were many instances, and it didn't stop at any particular level. It was all different levels of the organization where people were behaving badly. And then, of course, HR had to intervene. And so
you probably saw it all, huh?
Oh, yes. And then, that was just in a small window of time. I can imagine it's the folks.
Okay, give us a glimpse. Like, what's something that you saw that just kind of like shocked you as a professional?
It's hard to pick just one, I guess. But
I've had someone show up in a robe for an interview, a virtual interview, and then ask why they didn't get called back.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Well, along those lines, I'll pick the one that is kind of similar and happened to me. It was my first job out of grad school. So I'm interviewing candidates it's an entry level position in the office, and I was working in manufacturing at the time. So it was a good segue for some of our factory employees to apply. It would be a promotion for them.
Okay.
And so I'm interviewing different candidates. And I should note that at this time I was, again, fresh out of grad school, probably 25, 26 years old at best, and single. And after some of the interviews, a whole dozen roses showed up at the front desk of the workplace. And the receptionist called me at my desk and said, Kristin, we have something for you out here. And I go out there to see these. And I'm thinking, did my parents send me these? What is this about? And she said,
my gosh.
What are you not telling us? And I said, I don't know. So I look at it, and it's from one of the guys that had been in the interviewing process. And I was so somewhat mortified, somewhat awkward, the whole thing. Talked to my boss, and he said, I'm sure he's just trying to feel like he's flattering you, but I had to call him and tell him thank you, but this is not professional. And he said, yeah, I figured I should have waited till all this interviewing and explicative
figured
over. And I figured, what the hell?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So he did not get the job, not necessarily because of that. Kind of you see the pattern of like interpersonal skills there. So
yeah. Well, so what questions are still on your mind today? Because you research a whole breadth of questions around the workplace. What's on your mind right now?
Well, so something that kind of dawned on me, this was after I got tenure, and I was kind of in that phase of what's next, what I really want to focus on. And I think that what I learned from that area of research is I did not find any positive outcomes of, dysfunctional behaviors or aggressive behaviors, that sort of thing. And so it got me wondering, if all it does is cause people stress, cause the people around them stress, and it's clear from the research evidence that it also harms performance and engagement and all of those things. So my thought was, well, how do we make this better? And that
Yeah.
kind of led me down a path of getting into it's the positive organizational scholarship research. And I have really, really loved that for the same reasons. Honestly, I still very much gravitate towards what we call the dark side. Envy and abusive supervision and exclusion, all of those things are still really interesting to me.
Yeah.
But I also feel like humans are less hardwired to kind of naturally gravitate towards kind of stopping when we're in those negative places to say, all right, is what I'm doing right now actually going to be effective and get me what I want, or is it just feeling good in the moment? And
Hmm.
so my interest now is really trying to think about what does all that mean? It's been a learning curve to figure out what are all the different avenues you can
Yeah.
approach. And I think I'm kind of landing on mindsets, certain mindsets, whether it's hopefulness, um, emotional reappraisal, gratitude, all of those things that are, I think, thankfully gaining more attention. But I'd like to know a little bit more about how we can utilize them, not just as employees and individuals, but how organizations can kind of harness their power.
Yeah. Right. So with the right mindset, you realize it's not necessarily completely regulating all of your emotions. Like emotions are welcome. You don't want to suppress everything within you, but it's about
Right,
how to express
right.
and what is appropriate to express in the workplace that then has these positive outcomes, like you talk about motivation and team performance. When you're making a pitch for an idea, how can you perform at your best?
Mhm.
And those negative emotions, if not regulated or expressed in a productive way, can harm those
Sure.
outcomes.
Yeah, for sure.
That I think is so interesting. I love your new focus. I do want to ask you though, because you did have so much research around workplace
Yeah.
exclusion, envy, and dysfunctional environments. The more scandalous emotion range here. Well, so what do you say is happening beneath the surface in those situations? How can employees recognize when they're in a dysfunctional workplace?
I love that you asked me that question. And I really love the question because I feel like that is the message I would love for people to understand and receive. One of the things, again, if you looking at all of the scandalous behaviors in the workplace, and they are alive and well, and what,
Unfortunately, yes, too
yes,
alive and well.
and I think they
We,
will. I mean, it's human nature, really. I think is what that my conclusion of my not just my own research, but the body of research in this area is that when people behave this way, it's fear-based, and they're
mm,
in self-protection mode, and that comes out as a need for control, fear of failure, um, a need to reduce uncertainty. And I don't think that we as a whole have had a lot of education about how to manage that. Either people are learning it from their families um, or mentors, or they're just kind of naturally good at that. But the reality is, the workplace is full of competition and it's our livelihood and it's really important
the
for
stakes feel high.
they are. And it's very easy to feel envious of people. It's very
Hmm.
easy to just want to be kind of a a leader who says just do what I say because that's easier. It's a sense of control. But the reality is, again, what I learned is that none of those things really end up being helpful. They diminish trust, if not kind of decimate it.
Right.
And
Do
then,
you want to work for a leader who says, just do what I say?
right. Or
How
worse,
long is that going to
undermines
last?
you, or chews you out, emotionally embarrasses you in front of other people, all of those things. And you've got coworkers who might do the same. And again, so I feel like we kind of do know the why. It's that people are coming at things from a fear-based place and they're not really fully seeing that it's a fear and
Mm,
that maybe if they approach it from a different mindset of I'm not losing something here. I might have something to gain. I still have something else I could learn from this, or I could turn this relationship around potentially to be more meaningful. But that's hard to do, and especially when our emotions are running high, our negative emotions in particular.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting. The envy that emerges in the workplace, and people may not have the resources or know how the mindset or the education to
Mhm.
handle that in a way that's productive.
Right.
To like look at that envy and say, okay, what is this? Why is this here? And what can I do next that's
Right.
productive?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Well, for someone who's listening, who's realizing, okay, maybe my workplace is toxic or dysfunctional, what do you recommend for them to protect their well-being?
Also a great question. Well, I think I would first wonder, is it the culture? And if it's a
Mm.
pervasive culture, this is probably not ideal, but what I would say is you might need to leave.
Start looking now. If it's the
Start looking.
culture,
It may not be worth your sanity. You know, again, so much of our research showed that people will take the stress and internalize it. It affects them negatively, their health, their family relationships.
oh
There's
yeah, that
nothing
spillover, the
necessarily.
spillover is just dangerous.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so if it's truly, that bad, that toxic, I would say look elsewhere and find a place that actually values your work and is a more positive place. But if it's not, maybe it's just a boss that you have now that you might not always have forever, a couple colleagues, or in reality, it's just work, and work is
Hmm.
hard, and we're trying to problem solve and so forth. Um,
Or like one bad relationship or one exclusionary experience.
yes, for sure. I think that one of the things that we focus on in my advanced HR class is I have students read the book Crucial Conversations,
Mm.
and I don't know if you've heard of that or not, but I love it because it kind of gets at what we've just talked about without naming it exactly. But they talk about so much of the reason why people have conflict, and this is kind of focused, well, it's actually focused at work, but it gives family situations and dynamics. Any relationship that's hard, where it's emotionally
Mhm.
charged, stakes are high, and there might be not an obvious way to agree or compromise. That's what constitutes a crucial conversation. Um, when you work through the mechanics of their framework, what they're doing is saying, well, first, be self-aware, recognize what role might you have in it, whether are you contributing to it, and or is your thinking about the situation accurate, and then do what you can to try to make the situation feel safe. And I interpret that to be build trust.
Yeah.
And what I thought was so aha for me when I read that book, and what I hope my students are taking away too, is that you are trying to identify what is the fear that to which that person is reacting. And
Ooh.
doing that, if you can identify what are they envious about, or what are these actions actually representing, and then the crucial conversations pattern is a way that you can recognize that I can either respond in a way that might feel good to me right now, like I could call them
Hmm.
out, I could shame them for acting this way, I could lecture them. That might feel good now, but it says, what do you need to do to be effective? And that
Yeah.
means having a positive relationship with this person that you probably have to see every single day.
How can you
And
move it in a new direction with that
yes,
awareness of that, the fear
yes,
that's motivating their behavior, that's bothering you, or that's
right.
upsetting the relationship? With
Yep,
that knowledge, can you then shift your mindset to change that relationship?
right.
And
Yes.
easier said than done.
It is for sure. And we practice that in class, but I tell them this is a lifelong skill.
Yeah.
It's hard. You've got the other piece of what if the other person doesn't want to cooperate? And that's
Hmm.
hard. But the book talks about even just finding common humanity with that person. So if you have nothing else, just recognize that this is another human being. They have vulnerabilities just like you. And at the end of the day, excuse me, if you truly want to make the situation better, you're going to have to keep at it, even though it's hard.
Yeah. Even maybe even setting a boundary and saying, I'm not going to let this affect me at this
Right.
point. Like I'm going to compartmentalize this.
Yes. Yes. So I would say one, trying to help yourself learn more about these techniques of relationship and emotional self-regulation is what I call them. And then also the self-care piece, I think is really important too. Taking the time to not let that job override everything else in your life. So when you are done with work, be done with work. Enjoy that time. Don't ruminate over the things that you can't control. Whatever self-care looks like for you, do those things. Those are really important. And last but not least, I tell my students this a lot too, and my children for that matter, nothing is for forever. So if you're in a really negative situation, it's not going to be forever. Work hard to change it to the way that you think will make you happy.
Yeah. Right. You might think about a difficult time you've had in the past and how far away that you are from that now, right? Like that, this moment in time could be a sneeze in the grand scheme of your life.
Right. That's
And
right.
so reminding yourself that it's not forever, I think is a really great mindset to have. I also sometimes remind myself that life is difficult. And once you acknowledge that, only then it becomes easiger. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
acknowledging that there's going to be difficult people that are going to present themselves in your life. And it's really how you respond. And coming back to mindsets, well, okay, so you study resilience, mindfulness, gratitude, and hope at work, all these positive mindsets and emotions to have. So to have these, especially during stressful periods, what are some practical ways that people can stay grounded when work feels overwhelming? Because right now, I bet work feels overwhelming for most people. I know it does for me. So,
Yes. Yeah. It does for me too. And I think
and I have
that's
to
what,
remind myself, like, this is only going to continue if I allow it to be overwhelming.
yeah. Yes. And I think there's maybe two answers to that. One is it somewhat depends on the person, because I think it may depend on what is what what brings peace to a person or hopefulness or gratitude
Mm.
can be different things for different people. So maybe
Yeah.
that's one, is figuring out what it is for you that does make you feel restored and energized. But I also think then that's the more generalized lesson that we can all take away is that we kind of have to be intentional about our hardwiring. We haven't talked much about this, but the underlying a lot of this too is that negativity bias that the psychologists have known for a long
Absolutely.
time. That we're kind of hardwired to self-protect. We're hardwired to look for the dangers and the issues that might cause us problems. So therefore, we kind of have a natural tendency to be focused on that which could harm us.
Yeah, you
And
get home from the end of the day or you talk with a friend and you're like, let me tell you about the most sensational, like negative thing that happened today versus like, let
yeah,
me tell you about the other 50 times I expressed a positive emotion and had something go well.
yes. Yes, exactly. And I think that's some people are really natural at being able to do that, but most people aren't.
We all, oh, we all know. I mean, we know the people that are really good at the negative Nancy thing, but then I think
Yes,
most of us are naturally a little bit
yes,
negative Nancy. I feel bad for Nancy. I'm sorry, Nancy.
yes, yes. Sorry, Nancy, or Debbie the Downer,
Debbie,
for that
I'm
matter.
sorry,
But
Debbie.
but I understand where Debbie and Nancy come from. It's again, it's our hardwiring, and it served us well. And it can still serve us well in some ways, as long as it's not all consuming.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's hard. Again, we don't get a lot of education on how to navigate those feelings and that tendency to want to, again, self-protect
Yeah.
and kind of be vigilant about, what we need to do to either be successful or to minimize dangers. And thankfully, we don't have the same level of dangers that our ancestors did.
Yeah, I love how you keep coming back to danger because we're not thinking about how that is really what's at the core of this. That's what you're finding. Okay,
Yeah.
what's one way maybe you use some of these skills, or what's one that you really like to use, or a mindset you like to use in your own life that helps you
Oh,
overcome overwhelm?
I love that question too. This maybe gets to where a topic that I kind of fell into a little bit during the pandemic, and it's been so eye-opening to me that I feel like it's now a core value of mine, which is
Okay.
hopefulness.
Yeah.
And I think I am
And hope's
kind of,
such a unique emotion because it comes from out of a negative space.
yes, it is. It's also very it can be easily confused with optimism. In an
Mm,
academic world, they're different.
yeah.
Optimism is more of a positive expectations that things will turn out right or well, although I may or may not have any control over that. Whereas
Mm,
hope is, I believe that I have a better future ahead as long as I follow this path. Like I have agency in that and I want a better future. So I need to do the things that will get me that better future. And I believe that I can. And I love that about hope because I think it puts it back when we're feeling like we don't have control. This gives us that control back, for one thing. And it gives us a reminder that nothing negative is forever. So um, I guess for me, I'm really trying to think, be more intentional about hopefulness and what that means on a day-to-day basis. I think I've always kind of been very hopeful about careers and goals and outcomes for my kids and whatnot. But on the day-to-day basis, when we're dealing with uncertainties at work, uncertainties in society, and uncertainties with our family, hope can be really powerful.
yeah. I mean, you mentioned your kids too, because they're going to present with problems. And so, how do you help instill hope in them?
Oh, a great question. Well, one, hopefully model. I have one of the beautiful things about being a parent is it has helped me for my own self-regulation so much.
You're like,
And
I need to model
recently,
this, so I need to
I
be doing
do,
this
I do.
myself.
Absolutely. So funny you say that because in my office this year, I wrote on my bulletin board, resist the urge to put negativity into the world. And
Mm.
I put that there because I had been telling my son the same thing. Because while I love him, he's my little anxious kid. And he's not little anymore. He's a teenager, but we're always having to talk through that with him. And I'm like, gosh, you're really looking at the glass half empty here. Let's turn that around. There's lots of options here. There's lots of opportunity here. So, I think that that's been a wonderful thing in one way is that you get this chance to help develop these little people into grown adults. And you really do, at the end of the day, yes, I want them to be kind for sure. And I want them to be um, productive in a way that's fulfilling to them. But, at the end of the day, as a parent, you really just want them to be happy. And you
Hmm.
realize watching them that there's so many of the things that stress them out, we've lived through and it's been fine. And you wish you could just tell them that and say, it's really okay.
It's
You're
going
going
to
to
be
be
okay.
fine.
You've been here before, and you've done it before, and you can do it again.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
I think
But
even us grown-ups need to hear that.
oh yeah, I think modeling that hope and reminding people of that hope and putting more positivity out in the world, all really amazing skills to have to overcome all the difficulties that we're going to face in our lives.
Yeah.
Well, so before academia, you mentioned you worked in HR at major corporations like GE. How did those experiences shape your research and how you teach leadership and organizational behavior?
Yes. Another great question. In addition to forming, kind of my research interest on the day-to-day dealing with what makes people tick, in other words, too, I think that having that practitioner experience was so valuable because it now gives me a language to speak to why this research matters.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, I really thought when I was in the workplace, when we were benchmarking other companies and, developing processes and procedures and all of those things that that was the way to go. And many times that was fine. But then once I got into to research, scientific research and studying things more statistically, I realized, gosh, there's a lot that we didn't know. And now what I find is there's still a bit of a divide there, though. And I would love to see, like, I think this is wonderful that we can do podcasts, and I'm glad that's a growing area because there's still a large disconnect, I think, between academia and practitioners and leaders that we know so many things that might be beneficial to them, and vice versa. They inform us as to what are the latest and greatest issues and challenges they're facing, and it helps us stay relevant too. And so I think having that experience really helped me think in both worlds.
Imagine if leaders were looking to researchers and researchers could lean on
Yes.
leaders to get this feedback loop to then create better, because what leader doesn't want to know how to be a great leader and how to
Right.
improve? Well, actually, on that note, when you think about great leadership, what are some of the ways emerging professionals can start developing those skills?
Well, great. We talk about that too in my classes quite a bit. And I've embedded in one of my, well, actually both of my classes, but more so in the advanced HR class, more of a focus on positive leadership and getting them to think about, I mean, HR in many ways, for the students that don't go into HR, but who do want to be leaders, I say, well, you're going to be an HR professional, whether you want to be or not. Because, and I think to me, that is such an overlooked factor in the workplace that
You're working with
we,
people.
yes, we expect leaders to have technical competence, and very often they're promoted because of that. But by definition, as a leader, they've got to also build trust and uh, interpersonal strength, and they're the emotional guideline for everyone else that reports to them. They have a huge impact on the culture. And if they're not successful in those areas, then they're not truly successful as a leader. And so for young professionals, I think what I would say is we can teach the technical side of many jobs, maybe
Yeah.
not engineering and so forth, but by and large, I can teach my students how to run an HR department. What's much harder to teach are these, again, these mindsets and these behaviors that help build trust, build positive cultures.
Mm,
So I try to encourage my students to first think it's a self-awareness piece. What do you value? What's important to you?
yeah.
Because that not only helps them kind of gravitate towards organizations that might espouse similar values, but it also helps. I think if I had thought more about that when I was in HR and I was being challenged or dealing with conflict, I could always come back to a set of common values to have
Hmm.
some of these difficult conversations or to help build stronger cultures or to help leaders develop behaviors and procedures that build trust. But I didn't think about it like that. So I think
And
coming
how
from,
often do we hit the pause button on going through the motions and
yeah,
say, let me think about and reflect on my values?
right.
But maybe after this podcast, hit pause and
Yes.
think about what do you
Yeah.
value? Because
Yes.
that's going to guide you as you're navigating the workplace and as you are leading others and the kind of leader you want to be, you want to express those values.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And I think that if you think about values too, I don't know many people that would say, "Oh, I don't want to trust." I mean, I know some people may be more reluctant to trust, but I think if, your value that you're trying to instill in your workplace is trust or it's hope or it's gratitude, I don't know many people that would say, "Nope, nope, not for me." You might, but as a whole, values are a common place from which we can all sort of work from if we need to.
Right. If you want to have a workplace that has trust, right? And if you want to trust your coworkers, you want to trust your manager, you want your manager to trust you, what can you be doing to put that out? How
Yeah.
can you build trust?
Yes, and I love that too. We spend some time, actually, the academic definition of trust really helped me a lot too, because there's multiple components. It's yes, no, being knowledgeable about what
Hmm.
your task, so the technical part of your job, but you can be knowledgeable, but if you're also unpredictable,
Mm,
meaning people can't consistently expect you to either follow through with what you said you were going to do, or if you make good decisions some days and bad decisions other days.
we all know that team member, right? The one that
Yes.
they say the deadline's this, but you're just
Yeah.
not quite sure, and you might have to like make up
Yeah.
another earlier deadline
Yes.
for that person.
Yes. Yes. So unreliability, instability can damage trust, even if you're super knowledgeable. And then the other piece, and honestly, this is what I think people miss the most, is benevolence. So
Mm,
it's the belief that this person actually has my well-being in mind, genuinely.
yeah.
And so, and some people do, and some people don't. And I think we as humans are pretty good at picking up on that. And so
Hmm.
you could be all the other things, but if somebody doesn't believe you at the end of the day have their back, they're still always going to be guarded. You're probably never going to get them fully engaged, as they might be. You're not going to necessarily even get authentic information out of them. They're going to be guarded. So we
Yeah.
spend some time trying to focus on each of those elements of trust, and think about how do our words and our actions, our behaviors, our emotions, what do they do to either build trust or detract from it?
Yeah. Are you moving towards trust or are you moving away from it?
Yes.
Something to think about. So in
Yeah.
your interactions this week, thinking about, are you moving towards trust with that coworker that's been driving you crazy, or are you moving away from it? How can you let them know that you do have their back so that you can build a positive relationship, have them be more reliable, have them share that knowledge, and perform at their best?
Yeah. Yes. I love that too. I think one last thing that and maybe this is a personal bias because again, I love all of this body of research, but they've done a really nice job of also trying to put it back out into the non-academic world. Is I try to encourage my students to read everything they can in this world of positivity. So
Mm.
anything by Martin Seligman, he's kind of the founding father of positive psychology. All great things. He is at UPenn. So anything by Martin Seligman, um, Daniel Siegel has a book on several books actually too on influence and flourishing. We've Sean Achor has the book called The Happiness Advantage.
I've read The
Uh,
Happiness Advantage. Great
yes,
one.
love it.
Because you learn about what habits, what practices, what mindsets will help you to be happier. If you feel like you're not happy right now, why not lean on the experts who have done the research, who can
Yeah,
point you to strategies
yeah.
to improve your happiness, which would then improve the happiness of people around you?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Uh, yeah, all of those are great. And
What's
he's
your favorite, though?
not.
If you had to pick one book that's your favorite
Oh,
positive psych book?
oh, oh, goodness.
I know this is a tough one.
It is a hard one. So, um, I think that I would probably pick the book called Flourishing, and that's by Martin Seligman, because I think it kind of encapsulates all of the other research and whatnot that kind of outshoots from that.
Okay.
And again, that was really hard because there's so many books that I
I put
really.
you on the spot. I put you on the spot. You're going to later regret this choice, and then you're going to have 10 other books, and I'm going to get an email, but that's okay. But at least our listeners have, I said our readers, at least our listeners have one great book that they can turn
Yes.
to
Yeah,
after
I think
listening to
that's
this
great.
podcast.
If it's more of a leadership orientation, I'm using the book by Kim Cameron called Positive Leadership.
Mm-hmm.
There's also on that related to that positive communication and um, John Gordon, who's not a PhD, but really, really sophisticated in his thinking and has done a lot of consulting work for sports teams and whatnot. He's got the power of positive teams. Um,
And in that realm, it's so interesting because it's almost that positivity has like this weak connotation in athleticism that like it
mhm,
shouldn't be positive, it should be tough. Like
right.
you should be a tough
Yeah.
leader.
Yeah.
And you should be like you always see in the movies, like the leader like yelling at their team to encourage them. But at
Yes.
the end of the day, what's the value that you really want to have for your team?
Yeah.
And
Trust.
if you want trust and
Yeah.
that you need that positivity, can that be the trend? That positive leadership, those two words are coming together more often than not.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And we could go down a whole nother rabbit hole just with sports teams for that matter too. But I learned from reading, John Gordon's work that a huge piece of successful team performance is this collective psychological mindset of these teams. And so that sets the tone for so many other things. And whether or not they can, if they're, again, there's other research that shows we don't perform as well when we're under stress because, again, we're in flight or fight mode as opposed to just our energized mode. And you can see that play out in sports performance as well. When teams start to get down, when they maybe were ahead and now they're panicking, like, uh-oh, I've lost this edge. And then they keep missing
And
shots
then it
or
could
what.
spiral. Yeah, it
Yeah.
spirals from there.
Yeah. So the collective, we didn't talk about psychological safety, but I know that's been another more current research topic area on building positive cultures is building a psychologically safe workplace where people can be authentic, they can share their thoughts and ideas without being fearful that they're going to be clobbered for it, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, it's when you realize that a lot of this dysfunction is stemming from fear, then how do you create a workplace that people are less fearful in? They're
Right.
less fearful about sharing their ideas. They're less fearful about um, working together, that it's going to go smoothly, that they know that they can feel comfortable, and they can show up and do their best.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this season we're talking about what it really means to feel qualified and how to navigate rejection. What does being qualified mean to you?
So I probably, as I tend to do, overthink this too much.
We're like, where's the academic definition for qualified? And
Yes.
it just isn't
Yeah,
one,
like,
right?
well, in what context and in what, all that. I think so. I'm going to keep it broad, which
Hmm.
is being qualified. I guess the first word that comes to mind is competence, maybe even perceived competence. And that can go either way. I wonder if you're talking about, am I qualified? It's my perception of, am I competent to do whatever it is I'm being asked to do? If we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about just in general qualifications, I guess it would be somebody else agreeing with that perception or not. Do they think that I've got the
Yeah.
skills and competence to do whatever it is that I'm being asked to do?
Yeah. Well, and did you ever face a time where you felt unqualified in your career and face rejection? And what did that feel like?
Yes. Many, many times I will share the story I tell a lot with my college students because, being a senior is fun until reality hits and they're all trying to get jobs. And now they are dealing with rejection, the stress of all of that. And gosh, I have seen a number of college students and young adults who just think, I need to have everything planned out. And I think because they're used to that. And now the real world is open and uncertain. And so they get really stressed out about where they are in life. And especially if they're not getting signals from typically employers that they're valuable and they want to hire them, they get really down on themselves. So I go back to my undergraduate degree was at Villanova, and I loved my experience there. I am really grateful that my parents sent me there. It was a private school. It was not inexpensive for them to do that. And so all of my roommates, interestingly, many of my friends were accounting majors, and they were getting jobs left and right. And here I was,
Mm.
HR major, and typically you have to get a master's degree to finally get your foot in the door for HR. And I knew that, but it was really humbling. My first job was just, I worked for a temporary agency. I wasn't a temp, but I was hiring temps to be placed into jobs. I made $19,500 a year. And it
Wow.
was a while ago, but that wasn't a good salary back then either. And this is outside Philadelphia. So I rented a woman's couch, and so I literally lived on her couch. I got to share a coat closet and I shared that couch with her two cats, which
I can just imagine the conversation of you convincing your parents why you should rent this couch and them reacting
I
to
know.
that.
I'm still astounded now that I'm a parent that they kind of, I guess they didn't have much of a choice. I was, up in Pennsylvania doing my thing, and I think they were happy I was trying to be determined. But I look back, I'm super glad that the woman
You
that
were
I
that
rented,
convincing. You were that
yes.
convincing because I'm pretty sure I showed my mom some like basement closets that I could
Oh,
potentially move into. And she, after we left, I was like, "What do you think? Isn't it great?" And she's like, "You're not living there."
yeah, right. Exactly. Yes. I guess I must have known enough. The woman who I rented from was actually really, really nice. She was engaged to be married, was just trying to bring in some money. And my whole family loves cats. I guess they were like, well, she can't be that awful. She has Calvin and Hobbes were her cats.
Oh, and great names. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And they were great. And it ended up as good of an experience as it could be, considering. But I tell my students, I'm like, I graduated from what would otherwise be a pretty reputable college and ended up living on a couch. And I was very poor and in a job that I absolutely hated.
Oh
So I
no.
felt pretty low back then too.
I think if
But
your first job is one that you do not hate, like you are just like you must be on top of the world. Like
exactly,
you are crushing it because I think the
exactly.
majority of the stories are that you are not going to like that first job. And maybe
No.
if you go in with that mindset to be like, this is just the first job and you're not going to like
Yep.
it, you might be
Exactly.
better off.
Yes. Well, and I wish then that I knew about growth mindset as I've learned only, in like the last 5 years about growth mindset. Like I'm not where I want to be yet. And there's hope again, the hopeful mindset of, okay, this is temporary. What do I need to do next to move things in the direction where I want them to be?
Yeah.
And so, I at that point I applied to graduate school and got in, had an amazing experience. I loved my graduate program. I met probably the best friends of my life during that time. And it did enable me to get a really good job in HR. So 2 years later, life was vastly different, much improved. So I guess that's what I want to share is rejections, I think, teach us a lot about, again, resilience and hope um, and growth mindset, and recognizing that it doesn't have to reflect who we are as an individual for the rest of our lives. And it
Yeah.
won't. It will
Yeah,
not
this
do that.
rejection doesn't define you. And when you look back at past rejections, it didn't define you then.
No,
So it
no,
shouldn't define you
absolutely.
now.
It's
Well,
just growth.
before we wrap, tell us about the object you brought today and how it reflects your
Oh,
passion.
yes. So I keep this on my desk. Let's see if I can. There we go.
Oh, it's okay.
It's
Is
my
that a
little
coaster
angel
that
of
says
hope.
hope?
Yes. Does it? Hopefully you can see that.
Yes, yes.
So I figured
Oh, it's
that
not a coaster. It's a little block. It's like an art
it's a
block.
little, yeah, that just sits up on my desk
Oh,
that
I
I
love
found.
that.
And I found that we hadn't really talked about my hope paper that we did when we were studying musicians during the pandemic. But truly, this
Oh,
was a really eye-opening
yes.
study, and one that I didn't go in expecting to study hope necessarily. What we really went into it was trying to figure out what role did mindfulness play. And we got to survey these performing artists. So it wasn't just the like musicians. It was also anybody who was affiliated with performers. So they could be crew members and so forth. So this was during the pandemic. Everything was in their world had literally shut down and stopped.
Yeah.
So, outside of healthcare, this was a population that was severely negatively impacted by the pandemic. And so we got to ask them questions about to what degree did the pandemic impact them psychologically, how negative was this? And as you might expect, it impacted them severely and it had a very negative impact.
Yeah.
And what we found, the short version, is that mindfulness was fine in kind of keeping them calm, I guess. But it didn't have a lot of impact beyond that. What did, though,
Mm.
was hope. Hope was kind of like the factor, the mobility factor, if you will, that set in motion more positive, energized feelings, and then led to their willingness to stay engaged and find like new pathways. So some of them, maybe they took a job doing something they didn't love, but it paid the bills. Others found ways to do performing art through Zoom or through
Yeah.
online channels, and others just used it as a chance to collaborate with people or write songs and things that they hadn't had a chance to do. They also reported lower distress levels and overall better levels of well-being.
Yeah.
And it was so kind of like one of those aha moments of, wow, this is a really powerful mindset to have and very protective for these individuals. So it was sort of my message, if you will, or my torch to say, keep going with this line of research. It's really important. And
Yeah.
not too long after that paper got published, I was in a store and that little Hope Angel was there. And I thought, I'm going to keep this on my desk so that I don't forget and I can, keep going with this line of work.
I love that. And that's a signal to keep
Yes.
going.
Yes.
The power of hope. Well, thank you so much, Kristin. I really enjoyed speaking with you. And for everyone listening, I want to leave you with this is temporary. What do I need to do to move forward? So when you're in those challenging moments in the workplace and you're feeling that dysfunction, reminding yourself of that and having that hope, knowing that you have the agency to make that difference. What a beautiful message and so powerful to leave everyone with. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. I love it. Thank you for sharing that message and for having me.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you next episode. Bye. Thanks for listening to our show. Be sure to check out the show notes and email any questions to yourpassioncareer@gmail.com. Bye.